Woo! Hot one out here this past week. It was probably one of the hottest weeks, arguably one of the hottest weeks of June I've ever seen in my entire life. Leading up to this beginning of last week, we had some cooler weather last weekend. It felt comfortable. We jumped into this week and it got hot. I think it was 90 something today. It's still in the 90s here this afternoon. It was almost, it was 100 and I don't know, 2 or 3 degrees yesterday, almost 100 on Friday, 90 something on Thursday. It was a scorcher. So some things you want to consider when it's this hot, especially when you're out on the boat, is you want to make sure you're hydrated. You know, I drink a lot of Gatorade. I bring a lot of water on the boat. I keep ice. I keep it cold. That sort of thing's super important. Even if you don't feel like you're not hydrated, even if you don't feel like you're thirsty, you want to make sure you're drinking fluids and staying cool. That's so important. Health on the water and health and safety and that sort of stuff is just as important, if not more important, than the fish you catch. So I've heard of anglers getting heat stroke this past weekend. I heard of anglers vomiting at boat launches, all that kind of stuff. And that has to do with you not taking care of your body. So make sure you're getting lots of fluids. You got tons of water. You can get a 24-pack of bottled water at a Holiday gas station for $4. You can buy a bag of ice for $3. So for $7, you can keep plenty of water cold all day long. There's no excuses to not be hydrated. It's not a money thing. It's not a financial thing. It's just not you not doing it. So make sure you stay hydrated. That's very important. Oh, we jumped in the water a bit. It felt good. Water temps are jumping into the mid-70s, 73, 74 degrees, 75 degrees in some spots. So we're heating up. We are way ahead of schedule. It's not common to see mid-70-degree water temp the first week of June, but we're seeing it. The fishing is progressing nicely. We're seeing most of our bass spawned out here in the metro. Some of the clean side of Minnetonka, the east side of Minnetonka, is still seeing some bass on beds, very few largemouth, some smallmouth. I bet you in the next few days it's done. Bluegills are spawning. They're going to be done. We're way ahead of schedule. I bet you we're finding fish in true summer patterns here by the end of the week. I'll be in the water quite a bit this next week, chasing down fish in a variety of spots across the metro, and I plan to really try to dial in what these fish are doing from a more pattern-specific situation. Are they moving out? I feel like they're starting to move that transition. The post-spawn period for largemouth and smallmouth bass is going to be short-lived. I think they lived in that post-spawn period, that post-spawn zone, that immediate weed type area, very, very short. And they moved already up into the weed lines. And you're going to see some fish out deeper, I bet you, by next weekend. You're going to be out there the second week in June thinking you're out there July 4th. That's how this fishing is going to set up. Because if you look at how we're going to get, what kind of weather we're going to get this week, 90 degrees tomorrow, 90 degrees on Tuesday, 90 degrees on Wednesday. I think I saw it drop into a cool 88 degrees on Thursday and Friday, something around there, depending on what forecast you look at. So we're not going to cool off that much here in the next week. We're going to see these conditions continue to accelerate into summer mode. And with that, you've got to change and adapt. So this past week, we caught a lot of fish doing a variety of things. We still caught them on swim jigs. Anglers were throwing chatterbaits, wacky rigging, that kind of stuff. Memorial Week and Memorial Day, we caught them on wacky rigs, letting them sit and sink on the deep, immediate weed edges in 6 to 10 feet of water. Again, post-spawn pattern type stuff. And then we got fish to really move into their early summer mode, where we started to catch them on heavy weed clumps, deeper pockets, swim jigs. I even caught some fish flipping some of those areas. So those are things to consider. So this past week, we saw that easy transition from more moving baits to slowing down to power shots, drop shots, even skipping some docks. We caught some fish already on docks. The pike are all over the place. They're on the weed lines. Walleyes are on the weed lines. So we're finding some active fish and we're having some fun. The bluegills this past week were bedding up heavily. We caught fish on their beds this entire week. Bluegills, sunfish related. They were colonizing up. You could see the colonies. You also got some fish a little deeper. Crappies are done. They're off beds. I haven't seen a crappie on a bed this entire week. But the bluegills are on their beds. Their bass are finishing up. All that sort of stuff. So I'm expecting to see some cool fish behaviors here this next week, where we start to get maybe a little more active fish. The bigger fish have been tough to come by. In terms of a fishing guide, it's been great. We're catching numbers of fish. Hasn't been hard to catch a lot of 12 to 16 inch bass, but you know, those 17, 18, 19s or even bigger are been tough to come by. You're not seeing those mega bags of fish. You had the Tonka Classic yesterday. You had the Denny's on Tuesday. The Greenhorns today on Minnetonka. And looking at the results, yeah, there's a team or two that got that 21-pound bag for 6, but a lot of phenomenal anglers are coming into that 14 to 16 pound range for 6 bass. You're talking 2¼ pound fish on average. That's untypical for Minnetonka. Again, it's not a numbers game, it's a size thing. You're going to see that kind of come full circle, and I bet you see some big fish caught here in the next week as they start to set up on some of their summer patterns. So, like I said, we caught fish, swim jigs, chatterbaits, wacky rigs, that sort of stuff. I'm going to flip a little bit more this week. I'm going to probably throw the Ned rig, a little jig worm action, drop shot, play around in some deeper water, 10 to 14 feet, maybe even out to 16, 18 feet, see what happens and where these fish want to sit. And that's kind of how I'm going to be targeting these bass here this next week. The walleye fishing, a lot of guys and gals caught them this past week. Minnetonka especially throwing jigs and plastics in that 8 to 12 foot range, rock weedy areas. And just covering water, being aggressive, getting those fish to commit. That caught some fish. And then get after it. I heard of a handful of good frog bites for bass. So the guys and gals targeting bass in the heavier slot lily pad areas. Again, it's hot, it's warm, shallow water is heating up. They're going to find shade, they're going to find sanctuary, they're going to find forage, and that tends to translate to shallow, thick, heavy cover, and that's where you can throw a frog. I plan to skip some docks here this week and do a variety of things. Again, you got to get out there and chase them down. This time of year, you don't know what to expect. Fish are really erratic, they're moving all over the place, and you don't know what you got to throw at them until you get out there and just keep moving, chase them down, and have some fun. We did find a cool pattern in like 6 to 8 feet of water, heavy weeds, but we found areas, clean weeds, real heavy coon tail, really heavy pond weed, I should say, really heavy stuff, and we're looking for big pockets in these weeds, dark pockets in 6 to 8 feet of water, and the fish seem to be sitting in those pockets. So we did 2 things. We threw swim jigs at these spots and slowly worked these baits through that pond weed. It comes through it pretty nice, trying to intercept the fish in one of these pockets. Or if we could actually see these pockets and fish slow enough, we'd throw a wacky rig or a jig, a light jig, into one of these pockets, and we get a lot of fish doing it that way too. So kind of a fun pattern if you want to get out and chase down some fish. So looking forward to a fun week. Again, stay hydrated, get the Gatorades, get the waters, wear your long sleeve shirt. You can see my tan line's pretty apparent. I have white arms, dark hands, and that comes from wearing long sleeve Blackfish UPF shirts, keeping that sun off my body as much as possible. I oftentimes throw my hood up in the later half of the day when the sun gets really high. And again, hydrate, stay comfortable, stay smart on the water, and make sure your health is your #1 priority. So get out there chasing fish, stay cool this week, have fun. Let's see some of those big fish pictures and go out there and make it happen. And we're already jumping into the 2nd week of June here in Minnesota. Crazy how fast things came. Muskie openers behind us on Saturday. Don't know how many muskies were caught. Again, it was scorching hot. But hey, we're in full swing now here in Minnesota, chasing about anything you want to. Get out there, enjoy it, and be respectful on the water. Go catch some fish.